The American Civil War as fulfillment of the revelation and prophecy has been touted from the pulpit as well. In the October 1981 General Conference, Elder Ezra Taft Benson, then president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, testified of the prophecy's fulfillment.
In 1832, he prophesied that the southern states and northern states would shortly be divided in war, that this war would be the beginning of world wars which would eventually involve all nations and result in the death and misery of many souls. Specifically, he said that the Great Civil War would begin with a rebellion in South Carolina. This prophecy was published to the world in 1851. As every schoolboy knows, the Civil War began with the secession of South Carolina from the Union, and other states followed. When Lincoln sent provisions to the Union forces at Fort Sumter, South Carolina, the Confederate forces opened fire on the fort. Since that fateful day in 1861, the world has seen, as a result of warfare, the death and misery of many souls.
A little over a decade later, Elder Neal A. Maxwell taught that Section 87 was a remarkable prophecy of the American Civil War.
Another remarkable prophecy, given nearly 30 years before the tragedy of the American Civil War, not only foretold where it would begin, but more importantly, that it would end in the death and misery of many souls. By far, that war still ranks as America's bloodiest.
But did the American Civil War truly fulfill the prophecy on war? One way or the other, this can only be determined by a careful and detailed comparison of the prophecy and the Civil War. To begin with, we must first enumerate the specific details of the prophecy. The first verse provides 3 prophetic elements. First, there will be wars and not simply one war. Second, these wars will begin with the rebellion of South Carolina. Third, these wars will end in the death and misery of many souls. Verse 2 adds another prophetic element. That is, beginning at this place, referring to the rebellion of South Carolina, war will be poured out upon all nations. Or, in other words, the rebellion of South Carolina will start a chain reaction that will engulf the entire planet in war. The third verse adds more specific details. The initial stages of the wars will divide the southern states against the northern states. During this initial phase of war, the southern states will call upon other nations for assistance, including Great Britain. The other nations, in turn, will call upon yet other nations to help defend themselves. Like falling dominoes, all nations will become embroiled in a global war. Now, verse 4 introduces a new element. Slaves will rise up against their masters. Their masters will be marshaled and disciplined for war. Slaves will rebel against their armed and disciplined masters well into the conflict, after the events of the first 3 verses. Now, this rebellion is distinct from the war between the states and the nations. The 5th verse indicates that during the wars, unspecified remnants will go to war against the Gentiles and vex them with a sore vexation.